When I was a kid, we had a record player in the basement, and my sisters, they had stacks of 45s, my older sisters. So I would lay on the basement on that cool concrete floor and play their 45s over and over and over. And they listened to all that sappy kind of classic rock, the soft stuff. You know, Seals and Croft and James Taylor and Jim Croce and stuff like that. And I would lay there and listen to it and play their records. And to this day, they are so wonderful to listen to. Channel 32, The Bridge on XM radio is like my go-to station. So Jim Croce's song, Leroy Brown, came to mind as I was looking at this reading because I just had this flash of insight about jigsaw puzzles, and I love that particular song by Jim Croce, who just tells a story in the song, and it's really enjoyable to listen to in a special way when the story has a song that develops. And this particular song about Big Bad Leroy Brown is interesting because it's about the baddest dude in town, Leroy Brown. Everybody was terrified of him. And but then pride cometh before the fall. He thought he was so bad, and then he's having some beers in a bar, and he looks at a woman who does not belong to him, but in fact belongs to another guy she's married to. And when he makes eyes at her, Big Bad Leroy Brown confronts her jealous spouse, who then comes in, and the two men go down on the ground. And as Jim Croce so poetically describes, when Leroy Brown came up from the ground, he looked like a jigsaw puzzle with a couple of pieces gone. So he got thrashed by this guy, Big Bad Leroy Brown, got beat up. The idea of a jigsaw puzzle, we've all done jigsaw puzzles probably at some point in our life and know the frustration of trying to find that piece that just fits just right. And I was thinking of Leroy Brown, kind of symbolic of the whole human race. And we look like a jigsaw puzzle with a couple of pieces gone. Our nature is wounded. We were made in the image and likeness of God, whole and complete. Pride brought us down. When we got up, there's a couple pieces gone. The image is not perfect, and that's why I love this particular reading. As it describes in Colossians here, Jesus is the firstborn of all creation, the image of the invisible God in whose image we were made. So the image, our original image that we were fashioned in, has returned to us to restore all the missing pieces in this jigsaw puzzle. So that reading really should minister to us, because yes, religion is about finding God, about us finding God, but what we must realize is that when we find God, when we find this image of God, we find our very selves. We find ourselves completed. And it's more than just a jigsaw puzzle in the gospel. He's basically saying, I am the bridegroom of the human race. Just as man was kind of incomplete, it's not good for the man to be alone in a certain sense. God gives us a woman, but ultimately there's something much deeper in Genesis that precedes the marriage between the man and the woman, and that is the marriage between man and God. That there was a marriage that took place, a certain marital covenant between us and God in the beginning. And now our heavenly spouse has returned to us to restore and renew this covenant with us, to complete us and refashion the image of God in us and make us whole again.